Hello everybody, welcome to Kuchi-e Gallery video package opening number 7. We are going to be opening a package with, it says 7 items on here, but I think one of these might be 2 things, so maybe it's 8 items. But anyway, it might end up being a 2-part video because I don't want to make any videos that are like over an hour long, primarily because my wife and I have a lunch date and I don't think I have time for that. So I'm gonna start this video and it might be a 2-parter. So let me get right into it. But yeah, you can see that these are the items I purchased. And let's see. I'm gonna get right into the cutting of the package. This package is humongous, so I'm kind of gonna have to do some video adjusting in a minute just to be able to fit all the items. I had to zoom way out to fit this package on this little board that I do my videos on. So I just want to, but I always like to show that I'm opening the package so people don't think that I'm showing stuff that I previously got or, something like that. There's one. Wow, that's thick. Okay. And there's 2. Okay. They're all bundled into 2 things. Let's get rid of this. And I've got a place to put my garbage. Okay. Let's start with this bundle here. So if we do 2 parts, I guess I'll do 2 parts in 2 bundles. That sounds like a good idea. Okay, let's get going on this one. I do know what's in these packages, although I don't remember exactly what's in them. I could look it up because it's fairly recent. I purchased these in the last month or so. But one of them I've been searching for a really long time, over 10 years. There's one group of books in here that each have a Kuchi-e in them. And I've been searching for those particular prints for over 10 years. I always really liked them. And I thought they were great. I'd never seen them for sale before. And so it was really nice to be able to pick those up this time. So one of these items, or 2 of these items, depending how they packed them, are of those particular Kuchi-e. The artist is like a lesser known artist. A matter of fact, as far as I know, there's only three Kuchi-e prints made by that artist. So here we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. I will set one of those aside. These feel like books. So let's go with the books first, I guess. And let's start with this one. Let me get organized for a second here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I don't want to... Okay. So once again, welcome everybody to the channel. Really enjoying making these videos and hoping to bring more content soon. Trying to change things around. Oh, that's weird. Well, that's how you save money, I guess, by not buying things to wrap in, but wrapping in your local newspaper ads. Apparently we got here some, I don't know. I can't tell if this is TV. It looks like TV show listings, maybe. That's pretty funny. But anyway, let's see. It's funny. I bet we could tell when they. So interesting. They're using papers or whatever, TV guides or whatever these are, from 9/11, 9/14, and 10/6. So this is not that long ago. So like I said, I ordered these in the last month, so makes sense. Let's see. So I don't know what comes in which order. Here I have a note here. I think it's funny that they assume I can read Japanese, and they wrote me a little note, but I have no idea what the note says. But I can use my translation software and see, I guess. Let's see what their note says. See whether it's something interesting or not. Let's see. The note says, thank you. So that's what I read, thank you. I guess that's all I really need from it. Not sure. Anyway, it says thank you. Nice of them to attach a little note in the package thanking me for my business. So that's cute. First time since I've been doing these videos, it's the first time I've seen one of those. Funny too, because when I sell things online, I always put a thank you note inside. I just feel like it's a nice way to thank someone for being a customer. I feel like a lot of those things are lost in today's world. Seeming to me anyway. Like people are not very polite and they're sort of greedy in some ways. And I don't know. I just don't understand how people are sometimes. I read about, I watch videos and I read about all the scamming going on, people, selling things and shipping a fake item or sending people a picture of something, and then the person claims that it's not legit and they fight it out on eBay. And all those things are just so horrible. Like, they're really kind of depressing, to be honest. Especially from the seller and buyer point of view, it's very depressing. Okay, let's see which one this is and get right into this. I could change my background a little bit just so things were a little bit easier to look at from the perspective of the people watching these videos. So let's see what we have here. We have a book, obviously, with a really crapped up cover. Luckily, it still has the colophon or the cellophane intact. And here we have a print. Oh yeah, this is a cool print. This is an interesting print, and the reason I purchased this, because it's not in amazing shape. I don't have a copy of this. I'm not even sure if I've ever seen it for sale, but I have seen it in the aggregate books about Kuchi-e. And so I do happen to think this print is very interesting. So the thing I find interesting about it is kind of a typical scene. You have a beauty escorted by someone who's still dressed as a samurai, so someone who was either a what do they call them, like a street knight, or somebody who was former samurai who still like kind of adheres to the samurai code. And then you have these guys over here who are laborers, clearly carrying something, although they're wearing swords as well, so I'm not sure what this particularly indicates. But you have a beauty. Oh, actually, I didn't realize she's wrapped in a rope. Okay, so let me rephrase. This is not a couple. This is someone being returned to somebody. Actually, this print is more interesting than I thought. But anyway, the thing that I found the most interesting about this print, and the reason I decided that I wanted to try and grab it, is because this guy is wearing glasses. I think, right? Is he not wearing glasses? I don't know. I can't tell if he's wearing glasses or not, but it sure looks like he's wearing glasses. So if they didn't intend for him to look like he's wearing glasses, they sure did a crappy job, because it looks like he's wearing glasses to me, which I always think is really amazing. They obviously had glasses and optical things coming in at this point. But yeah, it always looked like glasses to me. And so I always thought it was really funny to see a samurai wearing glasses. But anyway, so the thing I like about this print, though, is the beauty is really, really nicely drawn. This is by Takeuchi Keishu, and it's a beautiful design. It's pretty early. I think this is one of his earlier designs. It's going to be probably pre-1900, which is, again, why I think it's kind of cool if the guy's wearing glasses. I mean, it looks like he's wearing glasses to me, but I don't know. Maybe it's just the way the wrinkles are done. I don't know. I always think it's funny, though, because it looks like he's wearing glasses. But anyway, it definitely lessens his fierceness. I have to say, if he's wearing glasses, it definitely looks less fierce to me. But yeah, this woman is clearly in distress. She's looking longingly for whatever is going on over here. Maybe she just came out of one of those baskets. I don't know. There's a castle in the background here. Clearly, you can see that you can see the walls of the castle here, and you can see the castle gate on this side. But yeah, I think the beauty is really, really nicely done. She's very well drawn, and I didn't realize she had ropes around her. It's funny, she's actually being returned or kidnapped, one or the other. But yeah, pretty amazing looking print. It's kind of beautiful. It has a nice, kind of a darker gray around the outside edge, which sort of sets it off a little bit. Unbacked, of course, I would say almost none. If they're in the book, Kuchi-e are very rarely backed, so the bleed through comes through really nicely. So just an interesting print. It was fairly inexpensive to buy, but I thought it looked pretty cool. And since it wasn't too costly, I decided to grab it. So kind of a cool print, interesting thing to start off with. So let me, as you know, I like to bag these up as I go just because it saves me time later, so I will do that pretty quickly here. But yeah, it's an interesting book. It is, like I said, fairly old. It was basically, so the prints that had more scenes, like the one we just witnessed, the prints that had those types of scenes more often than not were made pre-1900. So if they have like a full scene instead of just a single beauty or a couple of beauties, those are most likely done pre-1900. So it's interesting that they chose to do it that way, but basically they realized that because the audience was actually mostly women and they were doing this kind of samurai scenes, which were actually catering more towards men probably, but they realized that the audience was primarily female, and so they decided trying to cater more to females. So they started a more female-based, um, kind of collecting, like catering to them by putting images of more like females, women doing things, stuff like that. So after 1900, you'll find the vast majority. Matter of fact, some of the publishers, I mean, they basically had all. I mean, I would pretty much all of them were done in that style, where they just had a single female. Like they just basically stopped doing scenes because the artists. I probably have said this before, but the artists couldn't keep up with the speed required. Like they needed the art to be done. So woodblock printing. So the reason they stopped doing woodblock printing with Kuchi-e, and the reason they switched to lithography, it was a speed issue. So they were having problems maintaining. They had to have, like, let's say 10 to 20,000 prints ready to go at the time of publishing. So if they're publishing these monthly, you can just imagine how many. You can just imagine how many people and how many artisans were involved in trying to do that. I mean, imagine how much, how many artisans had to work to pull together 20,000 prints. That's what I've heard. I've heard the highest print number, which was Bunjai Karabu. Bunjai Karabu's print range was supposedly 20,000 a month at its peak. That is a huge number to have to produce each month. And it's kind of a known fact that Kuchi-e, the woodblock, the actual woodblocks themselves, they cannot last for 20,000 prints. Some people say, oh, they can last for a few hundred, maybe 1,000. I don't know. It's been proven they last way longer than people thought, but yeah. So anyway, all right. So this is another book. This one's missing the cover completely. So while the other cover was in damaged condition, this cover is completely gone. So there we go. Sometimes you're thinking, oh, this cover's in poor condition, and then you realize there are worse things like no cover. This one definitely doesn't have a cover at all. So anyway, it's funny. There was a couple of drawings or something mixed in here. There we go. So it has some drawings throughout. Those are pretty nice, actually. Western people. So kind of interesting. I'm not sure what this book is about. I'm going to have to look it up and do some research. Not too many drawings, just a couple at the front, it seems. Interesting. But anyway, I bought it for this Kuchi-e, which I've always really liked. It just looks like a ninja scene or something, or it looks like a scene from Lupin the Third. It's just a really, really cool design. I've always liked it, and this is the first time I've seen it for sale. So I decided to grab it. So yeah, it's a really, really cool design. It just shows a guy who's, I don't know what he's doing. He's trying to kill a snake or trying to, I just don't know. I mean, I'm not sure this is how you would walk up a wall, or like, I just can't figure out what he's doing. The mask on his face is kind of interesting. It definitely looks creepy. But I'm not sure what the point of it was, because I don't know what the storyline of this particular print is. So yeah, it's an interesting design. The face mask is sort of scary looking. I'm not sure if you guys can see the details. Let me try to zoom in. Actually, that would probably be better. So can you see the details there? The face definitely has some sort of, like, it has like a facial design on the mask. It's just a very interesting print. I've always really loved it. So I'm really glad to have a copy. Not in the best condition. It's got some wormage over here. These little lines that you find in prints, which you can see, which you can see here and here on the edges, it's very common in Japanese woodblock prints. So these worms, they're called wormage. These little worms love to eat this kind of washi paper. So I think whatever the washi paper is made from, which I believe is mulberry bark, these little worms love it. And so if they get into somebody's library back at this point, they could really decimate the entire library and ruin your woodblocks. I mean, I bought an album one time, which I'm going to do a video. I've decided on repairing a woodblock print. I have a triptych by Kuniyoshi that's really amazing. And I want to do a repair video. It's going to be quite long, so I'll probably break it into several parts. But I bought this album. It cost me $5,000. It had like 50 sheets or something in it. And a couple of the prints were really amazing. And so I was like, well, I don't know, but it had a very wide, like if this was the album, it had a binding that was like this wide. It was just a huge binding, and I couldn't see underneath it. It was very tight. So I bought the album from this seller. He assuredly didn't know either, because this thing was bound 100 years ago or 150 years ago. And so I took the binding apart because I wanted to separate out the prints that I wanted to sell. And yeah, there was wormage all over. So there was just like worms all the way along the whole thing. And luckily, I mean, there were 2 or 3 of the prints were actually ruined. But there were a few that, because what ruins them to me is if the wormage goes into the faces. If the wormage goes into the faces, there's really no fixing it. You're just kind of done for. If the wormage hits the face, it's just too difficult to repair. And in painting part of the face, to me, is kind of sacrilegious. Like, I would never do that and call that a print that's even worth collecting. So to me, now that's my point of view. Other people may think differently, but for me, I wouldn't do that. So anyway, but I would, this doesn't even require any in painting here. I would just take a kind of washi paper that matches this paper and just put it on, just put it with nori paste on the back, and it won't even be noticeable if the color matches. Luckily, only a tiny bit of it enters the artwork here, so I'd probably just put a piece of washi on that too, and nobody would even notice. There's a little bit more down here at the very bottom of this edge right here. Nothing major though. Anyway, overall, it's a really beautiful design. I just think this design is super dynamic and interesting. I have no clue what this guy might be doing, but I guess it doesn't really require any notice. It looks dynamic regardless of what he's doing. Maybe he's just using the stick to climb out of the water near the castle wall. Second print in a row that has a castle wall, which is kind of interesting. We were running with a theme today of castle walls. So anyway, pretty cool design, really neat. I can't remember the artist, but I'll put the info later on, and I'll add it to this video, which you'll see right over here at some point in the future. Okay, moving on. Let me bag this up real quick. That may not fit in there. No, I don't think it will. This book's very thick. Luckily for me, I bought several different size bags for this very reason. I basically buy acid-free archival comic book bags, and I use them. They tend to work the best. And the way I've started documenting these, which I won't do on here, but the way I've started documenting them, maybe I will show it actually one time, because I think it would be kind of cool for people that are collecting to see how to do this. But basically what I do, actually I won't do this tight because I need to open it up and do what I'm saying anyway, is I take a photo of the picture, and I bought this miniature printo. I bought this miniature printer on Amazon. It's called Famino, I think. Famino. Yeah, I think it's called a Famino printer. It has a little mushroom as their symbol. There probably are a lot of other companies, but this happens to be the one I picked. Anyway, I bought this little Famino printer, and it prints out images, and it prints out whatever you want. Like it has software that allows you to write out things, so you can basically make little inventory labels and stuff like that, which is kind of what I do. Excuse me while I take a drink. You can basically print out labels and that sort of thing. And the thing I like about it is it allows me to print out images as well. So if I take a decent photo that kind of captures whatever the print is, it allows me to, okay, this is the third book, although so far I don't actually see the books I was expecting, so now I'm a little surprised. But anyway, maybe there's more books in that other package. In any event, so the Famino printer works really well. And what I do is I print out a tiny little label, and then I stick it on here. Actually, I have one right here. Let me just show it to you. So yeah, it works really well though. I've found that it's really easy and it's super inexpensive as a whole, but it basically allows me to, I haven't done the actual labels of these yet, but at least you can see what I'm talking about. So this was in one of my past videos, and you can see that in this book, now I know this is the print enclosed. So you see I just print out this little sticker, slap it on top of the plastic cover, And now, as soon as I look at it, I can see I don't have to open this anymore, unless I want to, ogle the print or whatever. So that's a fantastic thing I've learned how to do, and I think it works really, really well. So anyway, yeah, I definitely would recommend that if you're going to be collecting a lot of prints or prints in books, even where you don't see the cover or you can't tell by the cover what's enclosed. I think it's a good idea, definitely, to have some sort of a documentation system. And this one just worked out great for me. It's kind of funny. I actually had the printer for a long time just for inventorying my prints in general. And only recently did I say, oh, maybe I can do an image. And man, it just changed my whole outlook on doing those, documenting the books as they come in. So yeah, so that's good. So here we have another book. Not really sure what's going on here. Well, let's take a look. Huh. It's a hardback, which is interesting. I don't know if that means it's new or old or what. Let's take a look and see. Oh, okay, this is a great book. Yeah, this is a lovely print. So again, another print that I somehow do not have in my collection, even though I've been wanting it for a long time. It does not come up very often, at least not in my experience. So this print is by Kuchi-e Hanko. It's a very, very beautiful print. It's small because you can see it just takes up the inside cover of the book. I mean, from cover to cover, like one single layer, I guess you'd say, of the book, rather than Kuchi-e, which unfold. This one doesn't do that, but it's just a really nice print. You can see a little bit of the coloration of this colophon on the right, and probably because whatever paper they're using is acidic, and they just probably didn't realize that this thin paper actually is not acid free. And so over the years of being in this book, which has been 110 years or whatever, it started to slowly transfer from here onto here, which I really don't want, and I very much so dislike. But I've never seen this print before, and it wasn't very expensive. I mean, it wasn't cheap, but it wasn't too expensive. And yeah, so I'm just going to take I'll just take a piece of acid-free paper, like I told you before, and I'll just place it right here so that when I close this book from now on, there will be an acid-free barrier between the two. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. And I'll probably do it in this case for the whole piece, just so there's no transference of any acid, or at least it'll transfer to this paper first. But yeah, that's my my plan of trying to keep things from getting worse. But this is a beautiful print. It's obviously a single beauty with some beautiful foliage in the background. She's got a nice hand warmer or muffler or whatever they call those things, but it's a nice deep purple color. Just a really beautiful design. The bleed through obviously comes through very nicely. So yeah, it's interesting that I haven't had this print before because it's one of the first prints I saw in the first book I read about Kuchi-e, which is a book by Nanako Yamada. And it's in English. It's an English book. But anyway, a really nice print, and I very much so like it. So I'm glad to have it in my collection. And I don't have the name or anything for it, so at this point I'll just say this is what it is. But it is pretty. Now this, because it's in a hardback book, I actually don't have any idea how you would get these out of here if you wanted to remove the print. You'd basically have to cut it out of the book, which would probably ruin the book. So yeah, this one's a tough one if you wanted to. I mean, you can separate it on the back here, thankfully. The glue has dried out. Oh, look, there's some kind of bug in there. See? Probably a wormage. Let me get that out of there right now. Oh, great. I have wormage carcass staining my board. Great. In any event, yeah, in any event, this is an interesting thing because I've never had a print in a hardback that didn't have a long kind of border. Like this top border would be on this side, and it would allow you to cut the print out if you wanted. This one doesn't seem to have that. I probably wouldn't remove this anyway because the damage is not so extensive or severe that it's really ruining it. But yeah, anyway, just interesting thing to note. I probably would try taking a little bit of water if I wanted to separate this off and see if just a tiny bit of dampness would allow it to like loosen up enough that it would come apart here. And I probably would try it at the very top edge first. It's a very slow process, let me just say that. Ultimately, I'd probably just leave it in the book, but yeah, it's a beautiful print and I really enjoy having it. I'm glad I have it in my collection now. Kuchi-e Hanko is one of my favorite artists, actually. I think that his prints and his designs were among the most aesthetic. He was very much so influenced by Art Nouveau, and I would say that some Art Nouveau was very much influenced by him as well. So that to me is a very interesting thing to think about with him in particular. If you look at his prints, you can tell that there's just a really serious influence by Art Nouveau. I don't know if he saw a book by Alphonse Mucha or if he went to a show, maybe he even went to Paris, I don't know, but there was definitely an exchange of ideas there somewhere. And there are a lot of Japanese around this particular period of 1895 to 1920, let's say, that were definitely influenced by the Art Nouveau artists like Alphonse Mucha. And I do think that Kajita Hanko in particular tends to have the most like direct impact. Like I think his stuff is the most impacted. Like it's obvious if you look at his stuff, you go, oh yeah, it really looks like it's Art Nouveau in style. And there were some others too. I think Kaburagi Kiyokata definitely took some of those too, although his was not quite as obvious, a little more subtle, I would say. I'm going to open another package because I want to figure out if those other books are in here that I was excited about. I think here they are on top probably. Okay, let's do these and then I'll probably break this video and then do another video after this in the next couple days. So there'll be a two-parter here. And like I said, mostly because I just want to be available to go to lunch with my wife. So anyway, so we have two books here. I'll do these last two books. As you can see, they're part of the same series. And I know, because I did some research before this video, that the title of the story is Dark Reality, Part 1 and Part 2, which I think is an amazingly ominous title. But anyway, I saw these prints a long time ago in some of the books I have, and I've always thought they would be really great to have in my collection. But I've never seen them for sale, and randomly a month ago they came up for sale, and I was super excited. And a couple of people bid, but I guess they just weren't as interested as me because I ended up securing them while they didn't. And you know, it wasn't cheap again, but totally worth buying because I think they're lovely. Now, the problem is they do seem to have, so you can see, I noticed there are binding holes here, or there were binding holes here. So somebody had actually bound this book when it wasn't actually required. The book has saddle stitch or side binding. So it didn't really need this. I'm not sure if somebody else put it in, or I'm just not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure. Anyway, we'll do one at a time. So this is going to be print number 1. And let's take a look. Is there any other art in this book? Oh, well, that's pretty. Again, see the Art Nouveau influence on this book? It's kind of amazing how influential some of their aesthetics were and how impacted they were by Art Nouveau. So it's kind of interesting that the inside covers are beautiful. Look at that. That is amazing. Let's see. I'm going to do this one second. This one is my favorite of the two. Let's start with this one, which is also beautiful. Oh, you can see they carried on the binding. You know, it's the same exact book. So okay, so here we have the picture. Oh, good, they do lay flat. Excellent. When the people took the picture in the video, it was like this, and I was really bummed out because you could see it's cut off right there, and I couldn't tell whether it was actually cut off or not. So you can see here that it's not cut off. So very happy to see that. So this is a print by a very lesser known artist. Matter of fact, there's only 3 prints by this artist that are documented. The artist's name, which I did research as well, is Nishioka Shinichi. So yeah, very, very lesser known artist, maybe only made 2 or 3 designs, but wow, they were very talented person. He was very talented. Let me zoom in a little on this so you can catch a good view. Unfortunately, they did add all these holes to this by adding the binding that actually wasn't even necessary, which is kind of interesting. I don't know why they chose to do that, but they did for whatever reason. So there's no choice but to deal with it because it is what it is. Let me zoom in a little bit here so we can take a look at this. But I've always loved the two of these designs. The second design is more to my liking, but I really like this one too. This artist is, like I said, they're kind of unknown. Like, I think it's pretty amazing that this artist, who just has no following, they're completely an unknown entity, somehow made two or three. I really like the third design. Actually, I like the third design even better than this design. But they managed to make three fantastic designs, which I just love. This is the thing I love about Kuchi-e, is it's possible, to find these amazing one-offs, like artists that just nobody's ever heard of them. Luckily somebody had thankfully documented these three prints, but yeah, that's it. There's only these three available. And I just think it's kind of amazing that they're so well done. It makes me wonder what happened to this artist. Did they go on to doing painting? Did they, what was their, what did they, what did they do? What was their thing? What did they decide to do with their lives instead of doing Kuchi-e as a job? Because it seems to me that they could have done Kuchi-e and obviously done very well. Excuse me, I'll take a drink. But just a beautiful design. Clearly a beauty and a man who are meeting. She's carrying again, some affectations from Europe. She has a nice towel or like a handkerchief here, which has a nice border on it. She's dressed in a Western style kimono, although it's still a kimono, obviously. Her hair is very much so styled in the Western style here. He doesn't look particularly Western. He's definitely going to be dressed. Let me try to pick this up and move it up a little closer. You can see the details of her face and her hair. They're just really nice details. Her kimono, very beautiful. The obi is very nice. Background is nicely done. There's the signature of the artist here. Nishioka Shinichi. I know this symbol is Ichi, so Shinichi, or this is Histo probably. So this is probably Shinichi. This probably is Shinichi. But anyway, really cool, really cool. The artist seal is here. And a little bit of damage in the middle, but not too much really. A little bit of staining, probably from the stupid ropes they used that weren't even required. But anyway, it is, you can't complain. Beggars cannot be choosers, and I am definitely a beggar in regard to this one. Here is the male counterpart to the beauty. You can see he's got a Western hat, so that's Western for sure. I don't know if any of the other affectations of his clothing. This, I would say, is definitely a Western style undershirt because it has buttons and stuff, so I don't know if that was the thing or not. His hair is certainly short in the Western style. The fact that he's got this growth on his face, I don't know what that indicates. But yeah, just a really, really nice design. I think it's beautiful, really well done, well made. I wish this artist made more designs, but I'm really happy that I have two of the ones that he did make. So let me bag this one up real quick, and we'll start on book number 1, I believe. Which, like I said, is actually my favorite of the two, just because it's a different kind of design, but I really like it. And I like the main character. I don't know if it's the same female character or not. It's difficult to tell because I think they look very different in this particular. In particular, they look different than I think they look different anyway. I don't know. We'll have to see. Tell me what you think. If you think they look different, or if you think they look the same. But I think they do look different. So I can't tell if they're the same character or not. Okay, let's move on to book number 1 or 2, depending upon your view. It says A1. I don't know if that means it's book 1 or not. The way they do their books, which I think is kind of interesting in Japan, is they have above and below. And so I've never really understood which comes first, above or below, top or bottom, however they word it or look at it. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. Anyway, I don't see that on here actually. This one says 1, so maybe this is book 1. Or actually, maybe this says Shinichi right here. Now that I'm looking at it. Okay, let's look at the second print. So this is the second print. Again, we have the binding issue, but luckily the print is still intact. So yeah, so I very much so love this design. I think it's just really beautiful. And interesting. Clearly, there's a soldier who's gone to war. Maybe that was the same guy who came back in the other one. We have a much larger picture of the beauty here. She's taking up the whole right side of the print. And there is a little bit of oxidation here, which is quite common sometimes in these prints. So you have to definitely be aware that that can happen. Some of these dyes they used, for whatever reason, over time, they very much so did oxidize, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is, you know. But they do oxidize, and so sometimes you get oxidation like it's on this right side right here. So you can see right here, especially at the top, but also just basically throughout this whole side, that that green in the background very much so has oxidized. I think it looks fine. I would have preferred not to have any oxidation, and I don't know exactly what's causing it, like whether it's being caused by the, you know, the ink itself or the way the book was stored or anything like that. So I'm not exactly sure what the cause was, but I do know that not all prints have it. So you might see two of the exact same print, but one of them might have it and one of them might not. So it's kind of interesting how it works out that way sometimes. In any event, again, we have a beauty wearing a really nice hairdo. She's got a bow in the back of her hair. We can go down the kimono and look at the details. Look at the subtle details all around the collar of the inner kimono. Then you have another set of details right along the edge here of the secondary inner kimono. Then you have this outer kimono, which I believe is showing a little bit of oxidation as well. The orange color, for whatever reason, often oxidized. So that was definitely an issue that would happen. Maybe there's some of that going on right down here. So yeah. And then nice inner red on the inner sleeves here peeking out. She has her hands folded in a curious way. But yeah, just a really beautiful design, I think. Got the half moon at the top. And on this side, we have a soldier with a horse. So I can't tell if she's obviously just thinking about, gee, you know, where is my partner, husband, boyfriend, fiance, brother? It looks romantic, so probably not brother, but you know, you never know. But just you can see that on the side here, we have this soldier who's clearly with his horse. He's got his saber, which I believe makes him an officer of some sort. The officers, I believe, had swords, but I'm not certain about that. This is probably the Japanese-Russian War, if I had to guess, which I do have to guess because I don't know the exact date this was published. But again, we have the man, his noble steed with him, and so he's looking off in the distance, and she's looking off in the distance. And it has kind of a forlorn, thinking about each other from afar vibe. But just a really cool piece. I really love this piece. I think it's beautiful. I think it's very well done. Got a little bit of little stuff here and there, but not too bad. There's the signature again. And again, just a really lovely print. I really like it. I wish it didn't have these holes here. I could remove it from the book and fix the holes, but I don't think I will. The print is in really decent condition considering it's definitely 110 to 115 years old. And I don't have any real reason to do that. Like, I think it's a really nice book and really nice print, and it looks like it's in good condition. I don't really have any reason to take it out. If I thought it was being damaged by the actual book, which I'm not sure it is, doesn't seem to be a lot of transference here. The bleed through is very obvious. Oh, it does have this. So somebody took this off at some point or something. I don't know what that was. I don't know. Anyway. But the bleed through is very obvious. Oh, it's probably how they're connected. So on this side, it's probably got the same thing, you know. In any event, really beautiful prints. So thank you for sticking with me and checking these out. I think they're really cool designs. I'm very happy to have these two books in particular. Although I really like the Kajita Hanko book that I got as well. Actually, I like all the prints I've showed so far today. They weren't just, oh, these were inexpensive and in great condition, so I just snapped them up. These were all prints I wanted that I didn't have in my collection so far, which is really nice. That's, you know, I have a decent sized collection, so finding prints like that is not all the time. I get a lot of duplicates and stuff that I already have, and you know, those definitely are they're still fun and nice to open, especially if at least you get a better condition or something. But you know, it's nice anyway. I just wanted to show you that these are the designs that are issued in the book. So in this book, the reason I always wanted them, oops, excuse me, the reason I always wanted them, oh, you can see that this one also has the oxidation actually in the top. So you can tell, so I like these books, these compendiums. This is the one that we're talking about right here. This is a volume 2 or edition 2, I guess, updated, revised edition. There are 2 copies of this book. This is this version, and it has different pictures than the other book. Not all different. There are a lot of crossovers, but in these images, I believe it shows this one and a different one here. This one happens to show both of these. The artist name is here, Nishioka Shinichi, which is interesting. Usually it's not on the cover of a book, and yet I believe in this instance it is actually on the cover, like I was saying, which is interesting. Mostly it's, I mean, the artists are even barely recognized in a lot of these books, but you can see here, that's definitely the same wording. Let me do this differently, sorry. So you can see here that this wording right here are the same. Sorry, it's very hot where I'm at today, and I happen to be sweating all over this book. But yeah, you can see that they actually gave the artist credit, which I think is amazing. I love that. So rare, very uncommon that you're going to find artists getting credit in any of these books. If you do find it, typically it's on the very last page or maybe inside the front cover for somebody like Kaburagi Kiyokata, but even he didn't get referenced very often. So anyway, that's what I have for today. Thank you very much for checking out my video. If you are interested in receiving updates about my video releases, please subscribe. If you like my videos, please like. I would love to hear comments. Anybody who has any questions about Kuchi-e. I'm going to do a video sometime soon about whether or not Kuchi-e are a good investment, and you know, how their prices have changed, say in the last 10 or 15 years, whether or not they're looking good for the future, my thoughts on Kuchi-e collectability versus Shinhanga, Kuchi-e collectability versus ukiyo-e. I do think that for some weird reason, Kuchi-e were missed. I think that ukiyo-e lasted until about, I mean, ukiyo-e that was like more collected by the West lasted until about 1868, when the dyes changed. When the red coloring came in, it still sold to the West, but it definitely had more of a tourist collectible kind of vibe. The Japanese loved that red color because it was an auspicious color, but the Western collectors often found it garish, at least, you know, early on. I'm not saying now. Lots of people collect those, and I have some that are really beautiful. So they obviously are very nice as well. But as far as the collectability goes, you know, basically once these prints showed up, and right around the same time, there was definitely a change. There was more war prints. There were more of those kind of prints. Like the whole printer, the whole woodblock printing kind of like direction had changed. Now, ukiyo-e ended and Kuchi-e began, like I said, around, you know, 1888 to 1890 it began, and then it ended around 1915 and 1920 at the absolute max. And what took over was lithography. So lithography, photography, woodblock printing of Kuchi-e were all happening around the same time period. And those prints could definitely be like made one way or the other. They could be made with lithographs. You could take pictures instead. So there was definitely a competing kind of advancements going on. So woodblock printing for commercial purposes was kind of in its twilight, let's say. And because of that, it didn't last too long. It only lasted like I said, like, you know, maybe 20 years, you know, basically 20 years or maybe 25 years, something like that. But as far as collectability goes, Shinhanga and Sosukuhanga was also happening at the exact same time. So because they had this crossover period between Sosukuhanga, Shinhanga, you know, like, so they had the new print movement, then they had the like self-printing movement, where the creative movement, where people were doing their own publishing, their own carving, their own printing. And then you had war prints and other things like that. So there was a lot of competing issues going on, but for whatever reason, Kuchi-e were less collected. I don't know if it's because they were in books that people didn't recognize them or realize they were in there for a period of time. I don't know what happened. But anyway, there was definitely a miss, and that miscarriage of collecting justice is now being righted thanks to Nanako Imada, who has graciously and selflessly promoted Japanese Kuchi-e woodblock prints for the last 25 or 30 years, and also Tomo Asahi in Japan has also done the same thing. So anyway, at some point I'm going to do a video about whether there's a good collectability in Kuchi-e, which I certainly believe there is, but also talk about why I believe that and whether I think their prices are going north, south, or indifferent. Anyway, that's it. Thanks everybody for watching. Have a great day. Bye.